go. So today I want to dive into the concept of the big homie, the OG, and the pseudo role model in the black community. First of all, welcome to Double R's podcast. Now, in doing this, I want to talk about where this personality comes from. Maybe not the exact origins, but how this personality proliferated given a certain social context. And then I'll go into discussing the traits of these types of individuals, these false leaders. And then I'll talk about the traits of what a good leader looks like. Now, this is extremely significant and important because many young black men and grown men too are led to a path of destruction by following the ways of an old fool. So, to start, let me give you a little bit of context, a little bit of historical context. This isn't exhaustive, but historically, this personality has proliferated under certain conditions. So in general, the government, the ones in power, the elite, thought it necessary to kill off our positive male role models as blacks in America. We've had the Malcolm X's, we had the MLK, we had Garvey from Jamaica, who was a positive black role model. We had the Black Panthers, Fred Hampton. We had Stokely Carmichael, changed his name to Kwame Ture and coined the phrase Black Power, amongst many other black men back in the day who were very positive and stood for something and wanted the betterment of our people. So, a brief historical context: in the 30s, 40s, 50s, you had the Thurgood Marshalls, who helped to create the NAACP. We went on to the Civil Rights Movement. Of course, Martin Luther King was a standout person from that, amongst many others, men and women. And that was in the 50s and 60s. Now, during the Civil Rights Movement, you had the new welfare rules, which said that black men could not, well, not black men, but men in general could not be in the same household as mothers receiving welfare stipends. Now, amongst that, in the, let's say in the 70s, starting in the 70s and going through the 80s, we had deindustrialization. Now, what took place was that corporations found that they could increase their profit margins by shipping these jobs and these manufacturing companies to places overseas and paying pennies on a dollar for labor. You have companies sending these manufacturing companies to the Philippines, to Vietnam, to Mexico, and they're paying these people a lot less than what they would pay Americans, thereby increasing their profits. But what did that do? What did that do to the American worker? So, and you can really read about this, and there's many books, but particularly William Julius Wilson's book called "When Work Disappears" goes into this, and he actually does interviews, qualitative interviews with some African Americans in the inner city. But moving on, when you had deindustrialization, when these corporations sent these manufacturing companies out of these big cities and these inner cities, you had a collapse of the tax base on top of white flight, in which whites moved from the inner city to the suburbs. So who was left in the inner cities? You had black Americans. So the problem with a collapsing tax base is that our schools are funded by our tax, by the tax that we accrue in a zip code or census tract or whatever. It's based on zip code, actually. But so if you don't have enough tax to fund your schools begin to fail. You can't pay top-notch teachers to teach your children. You have to reuse old paper, recycled paper. They begin to cut arts programs. Many things take place. And if your child can't get the proper education, then that obviously sets him or her up for failure and a life of potential criminality. On top of all this, there was massive amounts of discrimination within the job, within the job market. So you had deindustrialization, a collapse of the tax base, and then you had pervasive job discrimination. So black men who could once work for a decent salary and feed their families off of working for Ford and Chevy and other steel manufacturers and other corporations, they had no jobs in the inner city. So what were they to do? What happened? You had the crack epidemic in the 80s. With that came the war on drugs, in which American police primarily targeted black communities. Hundreds of thousands of black men were taken from their families and locked up for drugs like marijuana that are rapidly being legalized today. And white males are primarily making millions off of this, which is a big slap in the face. But anyway, let's stick to the point. Let's stick to the focus. We're talking about big homies, OGs, and pseudo role models. So to take it back, you had the collapse of the tax base in these inner cities. We had the Black Power movement. The Black Power movement, which was beneficial to our self-esteem, our self-concept. But you also had the Black Panther movement, which was, of course, the movement to protect us from police brutality, amongst trying to feed our own people through breakfast programs and things of that nature, clinics. But as we know, the Black Panther movement was heavily infiltrated, and leaders were killed, maligned. Most of our leaders, our positive black male role models, were either killed, compelled to move to Africa or other countries in this world, or incredibly terrorized by the FBI to where they couldn't make a living, they couldn't do anything for their families. So when we think about this, what happened was that many black families weren't families anymore. They were just single parent households in which women ran the households and were able to raise their children by themselves. And this creates an imbalance in the family dynamic. Some would say that this creates a imbalance in the energy, the masculine and feminine energy within the boy or girl being raised. But what a lot of people don't think about is that this is actually a tactic of war. In war, typically what happens is that the aggressor, once they come up on a village or a group of potential enemies, what they'll do is they'll separate the men from the women. And usually what they'll do is they'll kill off the men and go and have their way with the women. So this is actually another tactic of war. But not to veer too much off on that, let's think about the type of personality that is created with these boys who were raised not by their fathers and mothers. Now some of these personalities do come from two-parent households, but I do want to talk about the general traits of this type of personality. And don't get me wrong, because a lot of women who raised these single families did an absolutely excellent job in raising men and raising their family in general. But nobody can argue with the fact that our families would have been better off having healthy homes. Now, to get into the traits of these so-called big homies, OGs, and pseudo leaders, you got to be aware of men who are constantly using manipulation on younger individuals. All you got to do is sit back and observe how they treat other people. If they're using the emotions of one young dude to get what they want out of another young brother, that's a problem. It's a big problem. Think about DMX and his character Sincere and Belly, when he had the two young homies at the dinner table, and he had them going at it with each other, talking stuff to each other, and one eventually got pissed off and killed the other one. That really happens. Some of these big so-called big homies will get you fucked up, get you killed, get you locked up, and they don't care. Next, these so-called big homies are constantly involved in some type of drama with other men. Usually because of jealousy or some bullshit drama, but you can see these cats on the on social media today. Like, these older cats are always in some kind of drama, some kind of beef. Let me tell you something. Real men are not worried about what the next man got or what he's doing, because we got bigger things to focus on. So these are not drama queens, they're drama kings. No grown adult individual should always be in drama. That is the characteristic of a child, of an emotional child who hasn't got his emotions in check. Number 3, these so-called big homies and OGs have limited success in life because of their constant poor decision making. They might be still living at their mama house, living near their mama, but they keep on making bad decisions, and they're stuck. They're stuck in a cycle. See, all you got to do is sit back and observe. And from there you decide which way you want to go. But number 4, many of these big homies have a lack of accountability. They can't tell you when they did wrong, which is something that is it's a very big issue, because if you can't be accountable for your actions, you never learn. All right, next. Now check this out. These individuals have all the drive in the world for negative activities, negative goal making and goal seeking, but lacks the drive for positive goals. So check this out. So there's some of these cats who can be the connect on whatever, can tell you how to go do this, how to go hit a lick. But when it comes to them trying to figure out how to start a business, oh, they lazy now. They don't know how to do it. They tried their best, but they put all their energy into negativity, but can't transmute that, transform it into something positive. That's bullshit. That literally is hustling backwards. You see, if you used to sell dope on the streets, you are an entrepreneur. It's just in the wrong thing, and to say that is wrong. I mean, a lot of times these were the cards that were dealt. But you're an entrepreneur, and you should be able to transfer these skills into starting a business. That's a real hustler. A lot of cats make a lot of excuses, and we don't have time for that anymore. All right, next. And this is tying into like my first point, is that these so-called OGs and big homies are leading young homies, young men, to destruction, to death. They keep them in drama. They keep them involved in their drama. They keep them miseducated, perpetuating bullshit negativity. In addition to this, these individuals have a very micro focus in life instead of a micro and macro focus. And when I say micro, what I mean is that all they can focus on are the daily interactions within their community, which are micro. The lack of a macro focus means that they can't tell you how government policy impacts their community, or how global white domination impacts black people across the whole entire world. They're not connected like that. They don't read anything. But when you come to them talking about, you just read something, oh, you reading? Bruh. So they have a narrow micro focus in life, and they lack a macro focus, which is also needed. You got to know about your position, not just in your community, but your position in the world, your geopolitical position in the world. How do people see you in this world? How do people who look like you get treated across the world? You need to know that. Now, these so-called OGs and big homies never really want to see you do better than them unless it benefits them. They want you either worse off, fucked up emotionally, locked up. In actuality, they want you just like them, operating on their same level. You gotta stay away from these type of men. Also, these men are jealous of their little homie's potential. And this is a big thing. These so-called big homies and OGs and these false leaders only require the bare minimum out of you. They only require loyalty and perpetuating bullshit and negativity. They ain't gonna require you to, all right, go to school, you can come back and kick it with me. You know what I'm saying? Go do this. You know what I'm saying? Learn how to do this. They don't require better of you. They require where you're at. These are not real leaders. These are not real big homies. These are immature, unstable men, unfortunately. Now, quickly, let me go over the traits of what a leader looks like. And first of all, let me preface this by saying that no leader is a perfect human being. I think as blacks, we have a real issue with deifying individuals and leaders. And then when these individuals fuck up, we get so distraught that we cut their heads off. We criticize them like they're not human beings. And that's not right. It's real fucked up. So here are some of the traits of what a real leader looks like. Somebody who you definitely should look up to and follow and build and really build with, you know? So first of all, a leader cares about the health and well-being of himself first, his family, and his community. You got to care about yourself, because if you can't take care of yourself and you don't care about your own health and well-being and your mental health, then you can't take care of your family. You infect your family and your community with your negativity and your sickness. Outside of that, of course, you got to have a macro orientation. You got to at least know about the larger social influences on you and your people. Number 2, outside of war, a real leader is not interested in you making self-destructive decisions. The leader is not going to have you out here fucked up. There's no benefit in that. A leader understands that you doing well benefits not only him or her, but also the community, the race, the ethnic group. Number 3. Now this goes back to the trait of the false leader. A real leader has a micro and macro focus. They understand how both of these inform each other. As above, so below. How does wider government policy and legislation affect, which is the macro, impact the micro, our families, our communities? Now, a leader, the way they move in life is based on this knowledge. The way they move is based on their knowledge of larger societal conditions and smaller societal conditions that impact them directly and indirectly. Number 4, a leader thinks big. A leader just doesn't see what's in front of them. A leader thinks about the future. He appreciates and understands the past. A leader thinks big and is always thinking about new and fresh ideas. Number 5, a real leader doesn't sell hope. He or she is the hope through their behavior. They are the examples. They set examples. This ain't the complex of the pastor who can just sell you hope but can't tell you how to get up out the hood. It's not. They set examples. Now, number 6, you got to know that any leader can easily deviate from their path because they're human beings. Nobody's perfect. But they will never deviate so far to destroy themselves fully. And number 7, ultimately, a leader is going to inspire you and motivate you. You should feel good when you interact with a leader. Sometimes you might feel like you're not even worthy to be around them, because that lets you know that informs you. That type of energy informs you on the type of level that you need to get to and get above. You know what I'm saying? So in saying that, a leader requires the best of you to be in his company, in his or her company. In addition, a leader always thinks about bigger things than his or her current situation. There's a whole entire world out there. And a leader has either seen a lot of it or wants to see it, and will do everything in their power to know it. And lastly, a leader has decorum and dignity. A leader knows that others are watching and learning, in addition to the ancestors watching and learning and helping him or her on their path. A leader moves with this knowledge. And also, just to add to everything else, a leader is not selfish at all. So these are the marks of a leader, as opposed to a false leader, a so-called big homie, OG. And we really got to start